probably was a good thing.
Yeah.
I did buy. I have been buying pretty regularly, and
All right, welcome to another meeting of Midnight Discovery. Going to be talking about some mining, as well as some ICOs in general, and just current market trends. General discussion coming up. All right.
All right.
But yeah, before we go into the market stuff, let's go ahead and start with mining, because that's the main thing we're going to end up talking about today.
Yeah.
In terms of the educational material, Sean has been learning a lot about mining.
Yeah.
Can I get you anything to drink?
water. Water's good.
Water?
Delicious.
Sean, can I get you a hot dog in a minute?
Yeah, sure. I'll take one if you're gonna cook one for you.
Yeah, I'll cook some hot dogs
Okay,
here in a
sweet.
minute.
Oh, the hot dog.
Are you allowed a hot dog?
Yeah,
All right.
Hot dogs all around.
Hot dogs all around, and I'll get some water. And here we
So,
go.
yeah,
Anyways,
okay,
tell us
mining.
about mining.
The attractive prospect to me about mining is it's sort of riskless the way I see it. I think that GPU mining is always going to be around, no matter what coin it is. I know that like Ethereum's going to proof of stake, but I think the GPU mining is still going to be like SIA coin, for instance.
I'm positive for any coin. So the proof of stake in like Tezos or whatever, proof of stake works or whatnot, but what has to happen in a proof of stake model is that you have to have enough computers who agree to run the blockchain to secure it, or basically make it available. Like basically whenever the blockchain's down, then no one can like trade Ethereum or Bitcoin, but of course it's never happened for either one of those.
Is that how they could do like the 51% attack? Like if you only had 10 computers, some company could just go get 11 and overtake your blockchain, right?
Not in the
Is that how it works?
Not in, well, I don't think in proof of stake.
Okay.
But it's just a matter of that people just can't access it and run it.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. There's not enough servers.
There's just not enough servers. They take too long. So it takes like, you gotta be able to just like buy 10,000, which roughly costs like, you might call it 10 million or 50 million a month. It costs some amount of money. So these smaller chains don't want to just pay for that. So they do the what you're talking about, mining.
Right, and I think it's, very attractive. There's all sorts of resources on YouTube where there's people mining all the way from like people that basically have rigs in their closet that are about the size of a shoebox up to like big old warehouses that have literally like pallets of graphics cards. In fact, there's one.
Do they really?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's the
I've seen
Ethereum.
pictures.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's I forget the name of it, but it had like an alien type feel to it, and it was mining Ethereum, and like literally it was like pallets and pallets of graphics cards.
Really?
Yes.
That's so fucking crazy.
I saw on some various videos, and it's not just one. It's
Right.
like there are a number of places that have built from the ground floor what looks to be literally $1 million investments in a structure.
Right.
A huge warehouse level type structure that is just filled with pallets and racks and massive amounts of cooling. And they, as I understand it, they put these things, they're very careful to put them in places where electricity is both reliable and inexpensive.
Exactly.
Because that's going to be, once you've made your investment and put it in, that's your cost.
Right, you just let it run. So you're right, 100%. That's the only variables you really even look at that point, because
electricity and cooling. Yeah, cooling. Electricity and cooling.
And apparently a lot of these things they literally put them in places like the Scandinavian countries, or places where, let's just say
Antarctica.
I mean, it gives you a hell of an advantage on cooling if you're in an environment where your average temperature is, say, 60 degrees.
Yeah, or like maybe a cave for Tennessee. We'd have to find
kids.
caves.
Ask Santa for mining. Tell them to keep it at the North Pole.
Get North Pole and cave mining. Anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's going to be.
That's incredible. Yeah, and so like I think a lot of those are ASICs, and I've heard there's like you can do GPU mining or ASICs, and like the pallets and pallets of graphics cards, those are GPU mining, I think. But there's also ASICs, which are like Butterfly Labs. I don't know if you've heard of those. They did
No,
a
I
big
haven't.
famous Bitcoin one many years back, I guess. But yeah, they were famous for making these ASICs devices, and it basically does a similar thing. It just uses a different technology to do it, the way I understand it.
That's what I understand as well.
Yeah, and so I need to do more research there, and then I also
Yeah,
still
that's
need
cool.
to do research on
Just talking
how
about
you
it,
do
you
the
know.
different scripts. So like, I got the motherboard in today actually for one of the. I'm gonna start doing mining devices or trying to build one, and I'm basically got a prototype that I'm gonna build, and basically it's really open.
How
It's a big
do you
open
get the
case.
prototype?
I basically read a bunch of guides, and there's a couple that I'm really following. Crypto Badger is a
Crypto
really good
Badger?
one, and
Okay.
he's got one that I'm following somewhat closely. And luckily, I've got a computer background. I was CIO of a nonprofit with 50 plus employees, and then I've also had my own business IT consulting. Just got my A+ cert. So a lot of this
hell
is
yeah.
very convenient
Yes.
for IT and basically building these prototypes and basically because it's really just a computer, but instead of a computer that has a high processor and RAM, this is really focused on the GPU and the graphics card.
Okay, so that's what yours.
Exactly.
What's the processor speed going to be? You figure?
The processor speed, again, that's basically all the processor's really going to do is say, okay, run this script, and the script's going to turn on the GPU, and that's what really counts is the processor speed on the GPU. The GPUs.
Okay.
Yeah, the graphics cards processors.
Right.
So graphics cards are so high tech at this point that they basically have their own GPU and they don't have they
Yes.
have their own RAM. They have their own
Okay,
basically
they
their
do?
own computer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I did not know that.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
and so like just the same way that your typical computer's hard drive sends bits and data to the RAM, which then goes to the cache and then the processor. That processor, basically, they have all that combined into one thing on the GPU, on the graphics card.
Okay.
And so it's got a GPU, which is the graphical processing unit. It's got RAM, which is, I think, DDR5 in most cases. And you want to have it at least 4 gigabytes if you're mining Ethereum or anything else, because anything that's somewhat big because of the size of the, I think it's the DAG file.
And when you say RAM, you can't buy like little RAM sticks to get the 4 RAM. It has to come with the graphics card.
Right, 100%. Yeah,
Okay.
it's all one unit that's built in together, and you'll see it on the specs when you shop for graphics cards. Most of them these days will say, yeah, like the GPU is this many megahertz, like that's the clock speed basically. Right. And so just the same way it can send bits and data to the processor, or the processor can process more bits and data from the memory stack that we just talked about.
Yeah.
In a regular computer, this same holds true in a graphics card with the GPU. So the faster your GPU is really what you want to maximize. So as long as it's a 4 gigabytes graphics card, we're trying to maximize the GPU and minimize cost. So those are the big two things. Once it's above 4 gigabytes, you got some
Okay. What
qualifiers.
Okay. You're trying to say what
Are you with me,
again? Sorry. Say that again.
So you have like your graphics card, and we've kind of established that it's got the GPU, it's got its own RAM.
Okay.
And then
GPU, RAM.
Right, and so that's going to basically be, once you have at least 4 gigabytes of RAM, you want to minimize cost, what you're paying for the graphics card, and maximize the GPU. And so I think
Okay,
we can do some sort of
above
ratio.
4, you maximize GPU, minimize. It's a
Right.
cost ratio for GPU.
Yeah, and so I think we
Okay.
could do a cost to benefit ratio on what their cost is and how
I got
fast
you.
the megahertz on the processor
think
GPU is.
And you also need to throw in also another factor, which
What's
is
that?
the power consumption.
Mm-hmm.
Because some you can
Very
have
good
two
point.
two cards that have the same processing capability, and yet one is going to use more power than another.
Right.
And in the long run, as I understand it anyway,
Exactly.
It's like you've got your sunk cost to put the thing in, but then your cost is driven by how much power it uses.
Right.
So you have a graphics card,
Yeah.
both same power, both same RAM, but your uses twice as much energy. You're going to make a lot more money.
Right. And that's exactly right. And a lot of the newer ones, like the ones with 8 gigs of RAM in the graphics cards, and the ones that are 500 up to even 1,000, like I think it's the Titan X or whatever. It's very expensive, and they get up there. The cost curve is very exponential. It ramps up there pretty quickly.
Oh, does it?
Yes.
Yeah, for the
yeah.
high-end ones. And actually, there's a real big shortage right now. That's one of the reasons I kind of went out on a limb and bought a lot of these, is because I know that they're pretty liquid at this point. They're very highly sought after and very much in demand. But I think again, what you're gonna do is there's special motherboards.
Okay.
So once you get these graphics
Really?
cards,
Yes.
you mount them on the case, and the motherboards that I've seen, the motherboard that I got in today,
Yeah.
actually,
Oh,
it's
fuck
got
it.
a
Heck yeah.
PCI Express. It's got 6 slots, and so that's the key. Is most motherboards usually have one,
2.
yeah, well, 2, maybe 3, but
Uh-huh.
you're definitely not 6.
Okay.
And so these 2 motherboards, I
You
think
got
this
2
one's
of
by
these. Crazy.
Asus.
It's cool.
But yeah,
Asus? Okay, yeah.
brand name's kind of irrelevant. We just know that it's
It's good
got
to know,
6
though.
PCI slots.
Yeah.
So, but
But
yeah,
but it's really made for
mining.
this mining.
Exactly.
And
Okay.
as I understand it, you when you're going into mining, you get a whole rig. That's what it's for.
Right.
And it's got-
Exactly.
and it's going to have different characteristics than the kind of characteristics that you would have for a desktop machine.
Yeah, 100% agree. Because, like we were just saying, like the RAM and the computer and the processor in the computer, you don't really want to maximize in one of these things because
You don't
all
need
they're
it.
really doing is saying, all right, run the script to pull up Claymore miner or whatever miner you're
Mhm.
saying. And once it starts that process and the GPU takes over, the GPU is your workhorse. That's really what's
Okay.
going to maximize
Gotcha.
your system.
Okay.
And
I really never understood this whole thing from the start, but thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And apparently, also just on these GPUs,
Mhm.
some there, as I understand it, and I've been watching some YouTube videos basically on this,
Yeah.
is that some of them, the structure of the graphics of the GPU some are inherently better for mining than others.
Right.
And which I don't even begin to understand what this structure of the processor, but they were saying, I believe, that the ATI Radeon
Mhm.
graphics cards, that they were the first that were like they were the gold they were the golden boys,
standard.
the
Okay.
gold standard.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Nvidia weren't quite as good, but they were like second.
Right, right.
And but and it's like from like all sorts of normal ratings, you wouldn't even know that there was a difference. But for mining, there was a preference for the ATIs, and there were some graphics cards that basically for mining they just said don't stay away from that one because it's not a good miner card.
Is that
And I
because
don't-
they didn't have scripts out for it, or did you just see like I guess they maximized that kind of that cost to benefit ratio we were talking about?
I think it had to do with as I was understanding it, the sense I got was that it had to do with actually the logic structure of the card itself, that
Okay.
some were better for doing this mining processing,
Right, right.
which is different than, let's just say, like a gamer.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these cards were, as I understand,
Yeah.
were originally really
Right.
developed for gamers.
Right.
And those were the monster graphics cards.
Right.
But some gaming cards it had to do with decisions made on actually how they worked.
Mhm.
Some were better for mining than others.
And I know that is true. Is like a lot of gamer cards, they can be quite expensive and not very effective at mining, and I don't
Huh.
understand why.
And
That's definitely worth
Yes.
researching.
So-
Yeah.
and something that I was watching on it and was comparing the ATI cards,
Yeah.
and what they were saying was that the sweet spot,
Mhm.
and apparently it varies over time, but it's like the very high end, which I believe, or maybe it was Nvidia, I'm not sure, but it was the 1080. The
Yeah.
1080 was at the high
Mhm.
end, and that a much better price performance was on I think the 1060. The
Yes.
1060s were like less
Really?
than half the price of the
Oh,
1080.
for price performance
Yeah.
issues.
So
Okay.
so it was
Got
like
you.
because if the 1080 is, let's just say, gets you
I think
four-
it's 1,000 for a 1080. Yeah.
well, the
Yeah.
prices I was looking at were more like about 800, but
Okay. Yeah. 800. Yeah.
800,
That's probably
1,000.
what they are now. Yeah.
Yeah.
but the 1060s were about 300.
Yes. Exactly.
So if a 1060 gets you, say, 80% of a 1080, but it's half the price,
Mhm.
it's a better deal.
Exactly, and I actually ordered some 1050s. That's the ones that I'm going to put in first. That's the ones I got 6 of because they were only 150. And so again, you got the 150 price range for the 1050s. The 1060s, like you said, I think they were like 320, but they kept selling out every time. Like I went on Amazon and it said available June 5th, and I guess you could pre-order them. But then I logged back in maybe on Sunday morning when it was June 25th, and basically it said not available. No, not currently available. Check with these sellers.
Yeah.
And so anyway, basically couldn't do the 1060 for the 320, and then I don't know, the 1070. I think I've actually got one of those coming. It's 535, and then the 1080, like we were saying, is about 800. So
yeah. Do you want to do a little like part breakdown, basically what you bought, the manufacturer, and roughly what you paid, just like a little list of things that you typically buy and stuff, and
so
and who you bought it from.
The case, I was wanting this to be fast and efficient. I think you could probably build your own case and come out ahead, but I went ahead and just paid $100 for one that's pre-made, and it's really just like sticks and aluminum that's made conveniently for this process.
So it's $100, and who'd you get that from?
It was some eBay seller, I don't know, but you could probably type in mining case, and there'll be several results.
That's what I saw too.
And so once you get your case, then you got your motherboard. So that's basically going to be your foundation of your rig, your computer, and your motherboard. Like we were saying, it's specific. It's got to have.
Can you give me a piece of paper too?
Yeah.
I'm gonna write some of this down. I'm like,
no
problem. There's some good stuff here. No, it's good stuff. Yeah.
So
excellent.
So you're. And really, it's almost like a frame.
Mm-hmm.
Or like you're building a teepee.
Yes,
exactly.
exactly.
I mean, it's completely open that I was seeing.
Right, and so that's definitely worth mentioning and notable. So these cases are really just like, imagine a cube or a rectangle that are open, except it's a little elevated on one side or on half of it. And again, it's very open. Your typical desktop computer case is closed off to keep dust out.
Yeah.
These are very open, and you're basically going to get box fans. That's the cheapest thing.
Lots of ventilation.
That's a great idea. I never thought about that.
And again, if you're doing it in Antarctica or somewhere like that, you basically just let it sit.
Or your basement.
Yeah, somewhere that's cold and dry. Yeah.
Oh, cold and dry.
And ventilated. So
ventilated. Yeah, and clean, free of dust. Yeah.
Right.
And as I understand it, these things will be making some noise.
Right.
Yes.
Really, it's like a good bit of noise. So
exactly. There's people that were like making all sorts of jokes about how the world of sound sounds like cha-ching and your money trees and.
Would either one of y'all like a potato to go with the hot dog?
I'm good on potato, but I definitely will take a hot dog.
What do you think?
I'll try one of your potatoes. Sure.
Right.
I've never had your microwave potato. Okay, so you got a frame, and it's maybe $150.
$100 even. It was maybe like 90 plus shipping. So.
Okay, $100.
Then you got your motherboard, which was about $200 if I recall.
And what was the name of your motherboard? The manufacturer or whatever?
You said an Asus?
Asus
Pro. Asus Pro.
Yeah, if y'all give me just a second, I can even tell you the exact model number.
Just a
confirmation.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
But yeah, so the motherboard, the important thing about the motherboard is that it has 6 PCIe slots.
6 PCIe.
No,
PCIe, for PCI Express.
PCI Express.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's basically your video card slots?
Yeah, exactly. That's what your graphics cards are going to be plugging into. And you have to get risers, so that's another thing that you have to get.
What?
Yes.
Okay.
So the mining, it's called the ASRock, ASRock H81 Pro BTC 1150 mining motherboard.
And you got that from eBay?
Mm-hmm.
250?
Yeah, well, 225, something like that.
Yeah.
Did you check out Amazon?
I did. Amazon was really sold out of pretty much everything. I got processor and RAM from them because they had the 2-day shipping. I preferred to go with them, but again,
you ended up with eBay.
Yeah, and again, it was because I felt really comfortable. The motherboard came in a box that had already been opened, for instance. So, and I think I ended up paying $212 or something random for it. But I've definitely been comfortable. I've bought several $1,000s of manufacturer refurbished and used laptops and stuff in the past. So, yeah, I think that's a good value, and that definitely cut costs a little bit there.
Okay.
So anyways, you got your motherboard, you got your risers, like we were saying. If you're going to basically be able to connect your graphics cards to these motherboards, you have to have 6 PCIe.
Okay.
And it'll basically convert, because So these graphics cards, they need what is called a PCIe by 16, X16 lane. And then this motherboard, even though...
Did you say by 16 or...
Yeah, X16.
X16, okay.
And so you can do, yeah, exactly, it'll come right up. And so you've got your PCIe X16 lane, and then this motherboard, even though it's meant for Bitcoin, it still only has 1 by 16 lane, and then the other 5 are by 1 lanes. And so the risers that you're getting are by 1 to by 16 extensions.
Oh, I see.
Because and then you'll literally see them, like the by 1s are this big and the by 16s are like this big. And that's what the graphics cards are going to plug into. If you look at the graphics card, it's got the bottom, those little copper, or I think they're copper, but they're basically the data contacts, the connectors. And that's what's actually going into the hardware itself. And that's what's needing a PCIe by 16 connector. And so that's why you have to have these risers that not only basically move it up so that you can connect it and have it up there, but it gives you a way to connect the by 16 to the by 1.
Gotcha. And those are like $20 each or something?
Those are 60 for 6, so they're about $10 a piece.
About $10
or
each.
actually, I think I paid 40 for those, 40 for 6. So.
Gotcha.
But they're coming from China, so they're gonna have to.
Oh gosh, got a month on that one.
Yeah. But for right now, I think it'll probably take me a while to get the first one up and running anyway. So.
Right. Yeah, that's cool.
But anyway, so yeah, then you have on your motherboard to basically make it a working computer still, you've got to have your power supply. And so that's another thing you don't want to go cheap on.
No.
Your power supply, I'm actually going to go with 2 860s because of the cost.
2 860s?
860 watt power supplies.
Yeah.
And so they were selling for, I think, 160, 180, somewhere in that range. And then the like 1260 watt power supplies, or something close to that, was selling for about 280, 300. And so I went ahead and just got 2 of those because it'll diversify power a lot easier and just be, I don't know.
Is it easy with the load balance issue, or you think
you'll be able to take care of that? Each graphics card is going to have what's called Molex connectors, and the Molex connectors plug directly into the power supplies, and they'll come down just like the risers do with the motherboard.
So 2 860s, and what brand or whatever?
It's like Seasonic or Supersonic, something like that.
Supersonic. Okay. Yeah. eBay.
You said they were about 150 each.
Yeah.
180.
160 to 180, I think.
Yeah. Call it so 170. Say 175 be 350 for the 2 of them.
Yeah. And I think it might have been even more for the 1260, but again, these you don't want them. They're going to be drawing a lot of power, especially since I'm getting the older ones, like you said.
And these things bust.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they're overworked, these things will bust. So yeah.
Right, and that's exactly how you start fires. Like,
is it
any like troubleshooting you learn with computers? If you see smoke, it's almost always a power
supply issue?
Yeah, exactly. Power supply issue.
Okay.
And so basically that's going to power the motherboard and power the graphics cards. Then you also have to have your processor. And I think this was just a basic Celeron processor. And it basically, the important thing about it is that it fits the motherboard, and it's LGA 1150. And so Intel processors are land grid array LGA processors. And that just basically means that the contacts are on the motherboard, I want to say. And then the AMD processors are pin grid array. They're PGA processors, and they use a zero insertion force socket, a ZIF socket, and they are. That just means that the pins are on the actual processor itself versus on the motherboard.
Oh.
Like that. And so basically, the processors are not really substitutable. It's definitely not like a hard drive or anything that's like a keyboard by any means. It's interchangeable. The motherboard basically determines what kind of processor
you got. Okay.
But again, for GPU mining, you're not really going to use a lot of processing, and so it's just something that's cheap and fits in the slot. The RAM is DDR3 RAM.
$75, $100 for the processor.
The processor was like 40, I think, 50, something like that.
It's
really not expensive. Maybe 60.
And what brand did you get again?
It's an Intel Celeron, but again, it's LGA 1150 is the type or the specs.
LGA 1150.
And it's just you got to get whatever fits your motherboard.
Exactly, that's the key.
Yeah,
that's the 100% the key. And so once you have that, then you basically need your RAM. That's the other thing that basically completes it as a computer. And so the RAM just happens to fit the motherboard. Again, the motherboard's for DDR3 RAM, so you get some cheap. I think it's 4 gigs of DDR3 RAM.
Yeah.
I think it's PC 128, but yeah, it's or PC 3 128, of course, since it's DDR3. But basically, it is just cheap RAM. Again, you don't really need it for much. No, like 40, 50. It's really cheap too. It was cheaper than the processor.
$50.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's fair estimate. Let's see. So then you got your graphics cards. That's your big variable.
Yep.
And like we said, you can go all the way from the 1050s that are 150, but they're going to consume more power, versus the 1080s, which are like
the Cadillacs.
Yeah, exactly.
And you pay for it.
Right, exactly. So the upfront, but again, those are the ones that are going to be crunching the mega hash.
Okay, gotcha.
So you get your money and your return on those a lot faster than you would these. So.
No, you're getting,
right. Okay.
Do you even have to put a hard drive at all in here?
Of course, yeah.
Just
so,
some minor.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Like so for
like 500 gig.
Well, no, not even that. I think it's like a 32 gig, but I happen to have like a 120 gig SSD laying around, so I'm going to use that on this first one. But again, the important thing is the hard drive, it's got to have some sort of operating system on it. I'm going to use Windows since I'm using SSD. And I know SIA Coin works on Windows because I've already done it on Windows rig. But long term, if we're going to make a bunch of these, I would definitely recommend just doing Linux and Ubuntu on like a 8 gigabyte flash drive, because again, you don't need much to do this.
Oh, okay, on an 8 gigabyte flash drive.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I've heard things with like SSD versus HHD. I've heard like SSD works better.
Yeah, the SSD always works better, but again, I don't think. Yeah, it's definitely more reliable. You won't have the mechanical failure nearly as often, if at all. I don't think, because it's literally not like hard disk spinning around. It's like a bunch. It's like if you open up a flash drive, it's literally like circuits on the.
So like a 120 or whatever SSD. I mean, that might run like $200.
Yeah, but you don't need that much. Windows. You could probably you only need, if you're gonna buy this long term, I would get like a 60 gig or even less.
You don't really need that much. Like you don't need to download the entire Ethereum blockchain.
I don't think so. No, because your miner's just running a process. It's communicating with the mining pool. Your wallet needs to have the blockchain updated to make transactions.
Okay.
But the mining pool just needs to basically tell the mining pool, okay, this is the address, this is my worker ID. Credit this worker ID for this work, and send the coins or the appropriate, Ether, whatever coin you're mining, to this address, and then they'll put it on the network, which you then do with your wallet, which is completely separate.
That's totally confusing. Like I never knew that, but yeah. So you're thinking
you got the wallets down.
Yeah. So you're thinking like 60 gigabyte SSD is what we probably need, and that might run $100.
If that, I think you probably get
like
them for 50, 60, 70, 80, but yeah, definitely.
Let's say 80.
Yeah.
Okay, just for cost. Just for like cost stacking.
Yeah, conservative.
I hadn't realized that point of, and I wondered about, were you going to be part of a pool, because I couldn't see how this would work.
Right, I couldn't figure it out either.
I think you do. I think you have to be part of a pool. Even like SIA Coin and some of the others, I think you have to.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
You're, like you said, you're competing with these warehouses full of.
That ain't gonna work. I don't care how big a house or whatever. If you're competing with them.
Unless all of you YouTubers would love to invest, then we can make it happen.
Right.
And I'm just curious, and I'm going a little bit off track, but is all of the are all of the workers or whatever, the miners, built around this? What the winner of the computation gets all the tokens?
That's a good question.
Because if that's the case,
the biggest mining pool wins every time, basically.
Or is gonna certainly the odds are way in their favor.
Right, and then they could then dictate their terms. You only get 10%, and we keep the other 90. And if you want anything, you've got to be a part of us, basically. So,
one here.
That's a good question. No, I think a lot of them are more distributed, and I think that they're going. So what?
My pleasure.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. But yeah, I think a lot of them have got to be more distributed, because that's the big motivation for going to proof of stake, is that basically who can buy the most expensive equipment can have all the crypto.
Yeah, and then also the people who mine. I don't know why it works this way, but the big mining pools are often like chaos people within the Ethereum system. A lot of people think that the big mining pools will just protect the blockchain, like
this is their job or something, they just get paid blocks for mining. They really, generally speaking, care nothing about the blockchain.
Yeah.
And they'll usually try to sabotage it if they can. I don't know why.
Right, I think you hit the nail on the head. If they saw a for-profit opportunity, they would even sabotage their future earnings, perhaps. And in that technology, I think they might even take a one-time lump sum and basically sabotage it.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. I think that they have a lot of people, at least Ethereum and Bitcoin, have had a lot of people that are in a committee with checks and balances. And
I don't think we have enough mustard out
here. Yeah.
Get the mustard.
Get the mustard, yeah.
But yeah, and I think they have integrity. A lot of them happen to, basically, what, I could have rigged this to make a lot of money. But
for me as well, or just
here you go. No,
that's fine. Okay,
cool.
All right.
But I think instead of rigging it so that they could have made a lot of money, I mean, I'm sure they're still making some, but I think they're trying to distribute it more than what they could have.
Yeah. But yeah, okay, we'll get back to the parts and things and then talk about that other stuff some more real quick. Welcome, my pleasure.
Yeah, I just kind of know that it works, and so I'm gonna just get it up and running and then figure out, because if I'm a big stakeholder, that stuff is 100% more.
So what'd you say? So after the SSD or whatever, for like $80 or whatever the case may be, and generally speaking, and then after that it's the graphics cards?
Yeah, that's pretty much it, because the SSD communicates, basically sends the instructions to the processor, or through the RAM to the processor, and then the processor sends the instructions to the GPUs, and they do all the work in mining. And of course you gotta have an Ethernet cable that connects you to the internet so it can send
Does it have to be a fast internet, or can it be slow? Do you know?
I think it doesn't really have to be that fast. I think it basically is just crunching the numbers locally and then sending them. It can't be too slow if you're going to be part of a mining pool, I would think.
But just cable
internet. But it doesn't
internet.
need fiber, yeah.
It doesn't need fiber.
Right.
Right, and then and you're using box fan for cooling?
Yeah, well, right. I think because this case that I'm using is going to be open. I'm sure there's ways you could do it. I've seen people make them in milk crates and other stuff. So.
Right, and then and then for the graphics cards, what were which ones did you get?
I've got one 1070 coming.
And how much was that one roughly?
About $535, which again is typically an inflated price.
But sure.
Highly sought after right now.
Right.
The 1050s, I have 6 of those, and those are...
Oh, you got 6 1050s?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
So hopefully we can get it up and running, but those were only $150.
Oh, so much cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So much cheaper. Okay.
The video that I saw, the recommended was to allow for about $300 each.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, the recommendation was the 1060, but it probably, like if you're getting the 1050s for $150,
yeah,
that might be the sweet spot now.
Right, and that's, excuse me, but yeah, I keep kicking you over there, but anyway, the other thing is like different graphics cards, even the 1050 60s and 70s come in different specs, and they make different models of them. And so there'll be like the SC, the super clock, or there'll be like the Super Gamer Edition or whatever. And basically, what matters most, again, like we were talking about, is the GPU RAM, and this is called DDR5. DDR5, and DDR5 is not out for like real computers yet.
You got pepper,
and so that it's
if it's handy.
I don't think so.
Okay, forget it.
You know that it's basically, well, you don't know, I guess, but yeah, you can assume that basically it's going to be slow if it's less than 4 gigs of RAM, essentially.
Right, yeah, you just need about 4 gigs.
Yeah, but again, like the 1050s, some of the 1060s I saw only had 3 gigs of RAM.
Yep.
And so if you get a 1050 that's got 4 gigs versus a 1060 with 3 gigs,
maybe you're better.
Yeah, and again, I think as long as you have 4 gigs, you've got to look at the clock speed. And like the 1070, I think it had a clock speed in the range of 1800 megahertz. And I'm not quite sure how that compares or how that matters exactly. I just was trying to maximize that number for right now. But the 1050s have about 1100 or 1200 megahertz. And so I think for half the price, we'll see how the power consumption is too. But
that clock speed is the megahertz is how fast it crunches the number, more or less.
Right, exactly. And so that's gonna determine your clock speed. Yeah. But that is your clock speed. That's gonna determine your hash rate.
Okay, equals your hash rate. Yeah.
And
then that's ultimately what you get paid for is
the hash rate is what I understand.
So there's the overhead junk, or whatever you might call it, which is basically per box or whatever. For a big box like what you got, the overhead is something like $400 or $600 per box, and then about another $200 per graphics card, more or less.
Right.
Okay, so 600 per box, and then 200 per graphics card, and you might get 12 graphics cards once you're all filled up.
Well, yeah, I think you can do 6 per box, but you might be able to fit 12 in there. If you got another motherboard, I guess you could put...
Oh, but it's 6 on yours. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, there's 6 per motherboard, for sure. Mm-hmm. You could probably...
Did you get 2 motherboards?
No, but that's a good question.
Oh, you got one.
I like where you're thinking, because that's a great idea, because when the case gets here, if we could fit 2 motherboards in there, you might as well mount 12 graphics cards and just basically have 2 computers cooled down box for them.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking too. Yeah, we'll see. Mm-hmm. But you got a total of 7 graphics cards or 6? 7?
Technically 8. There's another one that's coming. It's an AMD. I think it's an RX 470. And it was about $360.
Keller, I got a different dollar amount. I got closer to about $800
for the overhead.
Without the graph. Well, I'm looking at $100 for the frame, $200 for the motherboard, $60 for the risers. Mm-hmm. The big item being the power supplies.
Oh yeah, I ignored power supply. You're right.
Yeah, and that's I got $350.
Right.
$175 each. Mm-hmm. $350, and then about $100 for the RAM and the processor, and then $75 for the SSD or whatever you're going to use. But so that's $360, $710, $810. Really I'm going to call it about $900.
I think it's a fair estimate. Yeah.
Oh, about $900.
Yeah. Okay. Got you. And then
that would surely get you the stuff you need for.
And you're going to have I don't know if the connection between the graphics card and the motherboard.
Right.
Is it going to be a wide bus, or is it? It's
a PCIe 3.0, and so actually I think it connects to a USB outlet on one side. Well, of course it's PCI 1 to PCI 16. But I'm pretty sure that's a USB 3.0 throughput, and that would be like 480 megs per second, I think.
I'll tell you, I'm gonna watch. This is one of the. I do watch these YouTube videos mostly just because I'm curious. I like to rewatch the meetings after I've been here.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to damn rewatch this one for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's see.
Well, that's where I think I don't think that this is going to be a standard connection that comes with the graphics card, and if it's not, that may cost you another $15 or so per graphics card. But
yeah, no, it's not a standard. I guess it's powered perhaps by the USB instead of Molex. But yeah, that's the ones I got.
Man, this is cool, Sean. This is so cool. Now, in terms of once you get to mining, what's the technical so once you buy all the stuff, I have assembled a computer before. Yep. I know it's a little tricky, but if you assembled a computer before and you can follow the YouTube, maybe you can get that far. And then once you download the software, how hard is it to download and set up the software, you think, and then to overclock the stuff? Does that get kind of hard? Are you going to overclock?
Probably. I'm going to start out just running it at normal speed, probably for 24 hours or so, and see what it is. See what the hash rate is. See, how hot it's getting. Right. Watch the temperature data. Okay. And there's programs, there's software. A lot of the graphics cards these days, the drivers that either come with them or that come with your miner will monitor the thermometers on that. But even if those don't, you can definitely download. It's called GPU-Z. And it'll basically just keep, it's a little software window that keeps active stats on your graphics cards. and how hot their thermal sensors get.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically you can make sure that it's not going to catch fire, and then I would just safely, up it up to whatever people recommend, and they'll typically tell you what the overclock speed is for the given. There'll be a manufacturer recommended speed, and you could probably even go a little bit over that, but I would research it and wait for someone else to do it. But until I, had a bunch, I guess. I don't want to burn out my graphics card day one. So.
Okay, yeah. So wait a minute, and then maybe overclock once you check your temp and check the specs, and then in terms of downloading and installing the software. Right. Is it kind of a thing, just like Google it, grab it, or is it like pretty darn tricky, or what do you think?
It's I'd say intermediate level. You're definitely using GitHub and downloading some resources from there, but basically, the one that I've seen was SIA mining, and it's SIA
mining, SIA.
Yeah, it's basically like just you download the SIA mining miner, and it's called the Marlin miner, the one that I use, and you basically it's a zip file that has two files in it. One's the Marlin miner itself, the application, the other is a batch file. And so the batch files are like basically the same batch files that you use in Windows for anything else, or like a .cmd file, and that's just a script. Like you could go in, and I'm very familiar with those. I've definitely used those before. But basically, you can just open up Notepad and type like ping an IP address, or netstat, or any command you wanted to run, save it, and just instead of doing save as text, which is I guess the default for Notepad, you do .bat and change the drop down to all files. And it'll save it as a bat file, and then when you double click it, it'll run the series of commands.
Oh, crazy!
It runs the batch of commands, and I think that's why it's called a batch file. And so that way you can automate stuff, and that's what it's usually used for in enterprise. Basically, you instead of having them run a bunch of commands manually, you just create and draft a batch file.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
It'll automate it and run a bunch of stuff. And so that's what you're doing when you download this miner. It's a batch file, and it'll say, the only thing I really had to add to the SIA mining was a local variable. You had to define a local variable for the mining pool, and then basically just add that in there to the syntax that they use for that application.
Okay, cool.
But I would say it's an intermediate. If you're familiar with computers and you've built one, and you can basically have the dedication and motivation and patience to watch YouTube, you can definitely figure it out.
All right, I'm going to cover some of the other basics of mining real quick.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just talk for a minute. Don't give me a break. But yeah, so like Sean was saying about the security with Bitcoin and Ethereum currently. The method of security is whoever has the longest blockchain. So they like to pay these miners kind of well, so that so it's more incentive to maintain the current blockchain than try to do a 51% attack or whatever competing blockchain. And in the current models for proof of work for Bitcoin, if they want to do a competing blockchain, there's no penalty for doing it. So what people speculate is that some of the miners who are becoming profitable from mining, they will continue to be profitable and expand their chain, and then once they acquire 51% or whatever, they might at some point in time just constantly attack the Bitcoin blockchain with these 51% attacks, which basically confuse transactions, and then there's no way to identify or prevent these miners from doing it in the future. This is with Bitcoin, just so people know. But
yeah, that's a good example. Yeah.
But the hope is that, the hope was that basically their good nature would take over and they just wouldn't do that, or that more people would mine than the 51%. But the problem is with profitability models, and Vlad, who works with Ethereum, he talks about this all the time. It's kind of hard to understand, but in terms of grand economics, you take this mining system, and electricity cost is not the same across the world, and the main one being China, who has subsidized electricity by the government of China. So in the US and Europe, electrical costs are roughly 15 cents or whatever, and then China might be 5 cents. So China is quite a bit cheaper for their electrical cost. And so what you'll do in terms of, so to cover the bonus systems are set up to make the computer program more as difficult as necessary to ensure that it's only solved at X minute interval. So Ethereum is solved at the 1 minute interval, and Bitcoin is solved at the 10-minute interval. So this is called the new block in the system, and only so much information can be held within one block. So in SegWit and stuff, they'll talk about doubling the block size or quadrupling potentially the block size, which essentially means more transactions can be accounted for in that same amount of time.
Yeah.
But it slows down the bonus getting process for some reason. That part's kind of confusing, but.
No, they have to process bigger bits of data. I mean, yeah. Same reward.
Yeah, bigger bits of data for the same reward, and then I was thinking at its block fullness. So this part gets like real confusing, but when the network's backed up, like Ethereum is currently backed up, every block that gets generated, they all have the bonus system built in, but then there's this second system, which is basically 5 cents for every Ethereum transaction that they push through. So there's 2 rewards you get for each block you create. One is the bonus, which is set up in the code, and the second one is completely variable depending on how many transactions are in that block. So why Ethereum is backed up right now, each block has like 100% transactions full plus the bonus paying out.
Nice.
But if the blocks are only like 50% full plus the bonus, then it like loses money that way, or pays less.
Question.
Yeah.
Is the congestion in the Ethereum market that I'm seeing on Coinbase now, is that being driven by what you're talking about?
It's not. I don't want to call it being driven by. It's the way that the system is set up, but it's profitable for the miners to. The congestion is more profitable for the miners than not having it congested.
It basically makes them more valuable and necessary to this, and they're like, everybody's like, please miners, push these transactions through. We need the
or double the block size.
And they're like,
or
I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
how bad do you want it?
Yeah. So if they keep the congestion, then they make more money than if it was not congested. And if they keep their blocks like 100% full of these congested items, rather than if they double the block size and then their blocks only become 25% or 50% full, stuff like that. So
I think they have to do less work, right? Like
when it's smaller blocks, less work. Yeah, it's less work.
And what's the thing? Do you know like the difficulty level? Someone was showing a chart that it was like 2.0 terahash or something. Like back in March, and it's ramped up to like 6 or 8 or something.
Well,
by now.
For Bitcoin or Ethereum?
For Ethereum.
Okay, so Ethereum has something called the Ice Age, or you'll hear about it called the Ice Age, the difficulty bomb, or the forced proof of stake system or forced upgrading system. So whereas Bitcoin is done, and the difficulty is completely based on how many computers there are to just make it 10 minutes exactly.
Yeah.
Ethereum has a difficulty bomb set in. So Ethereum right now, I'll just say roughly every minute it's creating a new block, but whenever the difficulty bomb goes off, which it's slowly going off now, and it will go off, and it'll slowly keep going off until August 1st. So both Bitcoin's set to do SegWit, which doubles their block size, I believe, August 1st, and that's going to be a very disruptive in the market, obviously.
Yeah.
But hopefully it all goes off without a scratch. And then, we'll see.
Swap to Ethereum.
Yeah, and then Ethereum is supposed to switch to Metropolis by August 1st. Basically, they're timing their switch to Metropolis to be at the same time that Bitcoin does SegWit, so that one is not disrupted and not the other.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. So Ethereum's doing it around the same time, and so if Bitcoin wanted to force an issue like SegWit or force something upon the miners, there's no way to do it. But Ethereum effectively forces it upon the miners by having the difficulty bomb, which means August 1st, when that happens, new blocks, instead of coming every minute, they'll come like every 2 hours.
Ah, okay.
So it makes that block time just exponentially longer to the point it's not profitable and you can't really maintain the blockchain. So this is how there's the DAO, which people say Vitalik like forced people to not do the DAO, but Vitalik went one way. He said, I'll continue programming this chain. I won't help this other one. So everyone who forked went with Vitalik, but it was a conversation that people had.
Right.
For the Metropolis and the Serenity update, there's a forced system within the code to sort of make it break if you do not, if you don't jump onto Metropolis. The code will just break.
Oh, it's not like you can just keep your Ethereum Classic and keep trading.
No.
Those. It's going to go worthless if you don't upgrade to Metropolis, basically.
Exactly. And then also, the difficulty bomb was supposed to go off 2 months ago, and there's some issues with Metropolis, so Vitalik pushed it off another 2 months.
Oh, okay.
So SegWit, and so was SegWit. So SegWit and Metropolis upgrade will probably happen around the same time.
Okay, you're using this word, SegWit, and I don't know how it's spelled, but
yeah,
it's probably not important.
Segregated Witness is, I know what it stands for, just so you know.
Okay, so this is some kind of an upgrade in the Bitcoin.
This is for
yeah,
Bitcoin.
software method. Yeah, it's operating
Yeah.
system. Yeah, that's a better way to say it.
Okay, and this is something that it's not an option. It's a mandated thing. It's going to.
Well,
you're going to have to.
The Bitcoin miners are doing it, but there's no way to force it on the Bitcoin
Yeah, that's
miners.
the good thing about Bitcoin. Since it's decentralized, there's no way for any central authority to mandate anything. They just discuss it, like he's saying, and then the majority agree to do it. And if more than 51% of the miners in the Bitcoin community agree to go this route, then it'll basically go that route. And that's why they have to come to a consensus and agree, because if the big players don't do that,
Then you just fight.
Yeah, and they've had like G20 summit type meetings with like the top 80 to 100 people, because I've heard Coinbase talk about it in
Yeah.
blogs and stuff. So.
And then when you fight, the loser or whatever, that bonus, the bonuses that get paid out, the loser essentially just lost the time working on those bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
Effectively, he's paid electrical cost without any real bonuses getting paid out. While the winner, he just got all the bonuses for that period of time, and then the loser just has to join back up with him. So it's pretty costly to fight, so you don't want to fight. But if you can like essentially guarantee that you'll win every time, or force a lot of confusion if you lose, like if you're around 51%, then you just do it all the time. If you want to.
Yeah.
And there's more complicated ways, but yeah.
That's how they can overtake the network with a 51% attack, too, yeah.
And so I'll talk about the bonus system real quick. Is that cool too?
Yeah.
So the bonus systems change, but depending on the system, Bitcoin is programmed, I believe, to pay out 4% or 4 or 5% of the Bitcoins as a bonus every year until it gets to 21 mil.
Right.
But apparently it'll like never get to 21 mil. It would take like 40 years or 80 years for Bitcoin to get to 21 mil.
It's something like ramped up to infinity. It's going to get really, really close, but never quite
right
at the top.
And so these bonus systems they're always determined in terms of Ethereum value or Bitcoin units or Ethereum units, not the USD conversion rate. So whereas the Bitcoins, you might have been paying what was $1,000 to miners at one point, then you'd all of a sudden be paying $100,000 to miners as the Bitcoin value increases.
Mm-hmm.
So with Ethereum in particular, since the bonus system was set up in Ethereum units, when the Ethereum was worth $15 and it's now worth $300 or something.
Yeah.
So the bonuses to the miners, they're getting 20 times what they thought they were going to get for mining the Ethereum units. That's what they're getting right now. And so when Ethereum did all their calculations, at $15, it approximately equaled whatever the cost was for the miners.
Mm-hmm.
But now the miners are getting like 20 times their cost because Ethereum has increased in value roughly 20 times. So,
right, yeah. The incentive is jumped 20 times.
Right.
It used to be when they started out.
And so what you'll see is, for a short while there in particular, you'll get an excellent reward to value on your mining rigs. But eventually what happens once the bonus system is known in value, like let's say Bitcoin or whatever, and once it's fully adjusted in value and stuff, then what theoretically would happen is that China would just add enough rigs until the expected return went from like, at one point the expected return was like $3 for every 15 cents of energy you put in.
Yeah.
China would just try to do it until the expected return became 15 cents value for every 15 cents of energy you put in, because China's cost is always lower.
Right.
Their cost is always
They can push
like,
everyone else out.
They can sort of push everyone else out by making it overly complex. But when the prices are changing really crazily and something jumps in value really quickly, then that thing will be profitable to mine until people move over, stuff like that.
Yeah. And that's why I think people swap. That's one of the fascinating things about the mining pools that I looked at, is that they swap to the different alt currencies. So.
Is there any hardware developers in particular that you saw were going after mining?
Are you talking about like AMD, Intel type stuff?
Yeah, which ones you saw that were kind of aggressively toward mining equipment or whatever?
I think a lot of them at least just have like one motherboard or like one model that's specific for those. Like they almost all of them have something that caters to them, but it's kind of like just having the like Escalade or something like that. You know, they're not all their cars on their lot are going to be that big, but yeah.
And then so all this is for the computer processing mining, or something that people call proof of work, which is basically set by how hard the computers can work. And new systems, they often call these proof of stake, but it can really be anything else. And so the Ethereum is trying to go to proof of stake, which is essentially the money holders will secure the network. And the main threat or the main challenge when you go to proof of stake is you have to be big enough to be able to purchase enough computers so that your transactions will consistently be reached and they'll go through all in a similar time frame. Like Ethereum, anywhere in the world right now, if you send a transaction through, it will reach the Ethereum network, let's say in like 3 seconds or something, because there's enough of them out there. But if there is only like 50 Ethereum nodes, then maybe it takes 20 seconds to reach them, and then the blockchain no longer starts to, it's not reliable anymore.
Yeah, I guess what's the incentive in proof of stake? Because you're basically putting your coins up, and so you're going to get more back.
What's the incentive
to process transactions?
To process, So in both Ethereum and Bitcoin, there's the two rewards. There's the bonuses. It's good to think about them as bonuses.
Yeah, because they're variable.
Well, yeah, they're variable, and also just they're not like, they're sort of built into the system, but they're not really built into the system. Like the system doesn't gain anything from it.
Yeah.
But so there's the bonuses, which Ethereum and Bitcoin pay out, which is units of Ethereum, units of Bitcoin. And then there's the second thing, which is pushing the transactions through. So in Ethereum and Bitcoin, like maybe it's 50 cents to push the transactions through, and that's paid to the miners as well, based on how full the blocks are. So if you have like 100% full block, and it's like 300 transactions, and they're all at 50 cents, so maybe it's $150 for that block, and then that $150, whereas the bonus is paid out in lump sums, the $150 I think is just split out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that when Ethereum goes to proof of stake, miners will always in all systems, they should always get 100% of that like push through money. You have to have that in order to sustain the system.
Yeah,
at least at a break even.
Process transactions.
Yeah, you have to at least set up a break-even system for the process of transactions. But that bonus money to maintain the size of the chain, that's the thing that's like, it's not necessary today. And Bitcoin is more necessary, but with so much enterprise support, you can find it's easier to find 1,000 to 5,000 computers to support your ICO than it was when Bitcoin started. When you couldn't find 1,000 or 5,000 to maintain the Bitcoin just just for, shits and giggles.
Yeah.
But today you can. But yeah, so that really, I think that covers everything about mining. Do you think so?
Yeah, I think that's
well, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Going back to the actually the mining rig.
Yeah.
But, okay, so in this case, you got a mining rig, and I'm going to use round numbers. About $2,400.
Right.
Is going to be put into this.
Yeah.
So, have you got any concept at this point of like how fast a payback you'll get on that 20?
Most people are averaging 6 to 9 months. Patrick, and when he crunches numbers, he thinks it's going to be like 4 to 5. But I think even there's going to be a learning process. There's going to be costs that we didn't expect at first.
Right, I agree with you.
Yeah, there's probably going to be 6, 7. I'm expecting 6 to 9 months. Yeah.
6 to 9 months. That's awesome. Yeah.
We'll see though. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's expected for the payback. That's cool.
So recover your investment in about 6 to 9 months.
Right. Yeah. And that's, that would require you earning, about $300 a month, yeah. So at those rates. So.
Okay, so, and as I understand on this mining stuff, that it's built into, and the only things I've seen really have been more having to do with the Bitcoin. But but using that as a framework. But what I understand is that the amount of work that you have to put in it's built into the structure to require more work to get the same coinage out.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about with the difficulty level too. Because, like, for instance, SIA coin, I've got a 318 megahertz per second graphics card. That's the hash rate of my graphics card for SIA coin. But like, if I downloaded the Litecoin client and you got the Litecoin miner, I definitely wouldn't get that. Because like when we were crunching those numbers with that calculator, that's why it came out to like $900 a month if you're 318 megahertz per second. Because that's only with Litecoin. That's not with SIA coin because the difficulty level. There's something in there that makes it. And like I guarantee you, with Bitcoin, you probably have to have one of these warehouses to get 318 megahertz per second in your hash rate. So the difficulty level's got to be in there somewhere.
Well, that was what I understood was actually built into the original
algorithm of the coin. Yeah.
Exactly. Into whatever his name is, Satoshi Nakamoto.
Right.
That was part of this original design was this idea that you would start off, and you would and at the beginning it was relatively easy to get a payback, but that over time it gets harder and harder and harder. And at least one of the videos I was watching, it was a video called Bitcoin Rising.
Right.
And it was like a 90-minute documentary.
Yeah.
But
that's awesome.
One of the key individuals in that was a young guy about your age and a techie person and good guy and he really got into it from the he was a miner and he was built he built these rigs and everything and he was and it was like the moment that box of computer gear or whatever would hit the house, so to speak, he was busting ass to get it up and running, because it was like every hour that you aren't running is an hour of
lost opportunity.
Lost opportunity.
Yeah.
But it was interesting watching this documentary. It'd be a good one to watch.
Yeah.
But what it showed was,
Bitcoin Rising.
Bitcoin Rising. That's the title of it. I've got it downloaded, by the way, if I can put it on a flash drive for you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
But he was making really good money, and it was like he was paying for his, he had 2 kids and wife, and this is what he was doing for
full-time living,
full-time living, and pretty good living too. But it was like he was making really good money, but then as time goes forward, it's like the amount of work that he would have to put in. When I say he, I'm talking about his equipment. His equipment would have to put in to get the same output was like constantly going up. And it was like, and it was like at the end, his machines, he said basically, okay, I am no longer able to, this is not economically viable anymore. And he had like 6 big ASIC rigs that were coming in, and he was literally, he wasn't even bother setting them up. He was shipping them off to other people just to recover his investment, and because it had.
I'm sure he regretted it now, though.
Well, the ASICs,
I don't know.
It depends. I think the ASICs might have to do Bitcoin or something. I don't know. It depends on the algorithms and stuff. But
I think like ASICs might have to do Bitcoin.
Yeah, and GPUs can do all the altcoins and stuff too.
Okay.
So he couldn't just swap to it, because if you had ASICs, he couldn't just be like, all right, well, Bitcoin's too hard now. I can't just swap to the new Litecoin or whatever.
But the ASICs, as I understood, were actually, that was like eventually they went to the GPUs, and then the ASICs were actually, they beat the GPUs for Bitcoin.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And so it was like you shifted to ASIC architecture, but then the it basically you had to do more work. It became, at least for this guy, not cost effective.
Now, and I'll mention something with Bitcoin. I don't know if it's been solved yet, or resolved rather, but there's a trick that a bunch of the Chinese miners were aware of, to where basically you would get like 25% more hashes from all your systems if you did this little piece of code, which was not supposed to be this. I mean, it's obviously it's code, so some people call it a bug, but other people just call it like a hidden advantage.
Yeah.
But essentially, like for a lot of the people who got out of Bitcoin who weren't finding it to be profitable, because a lot of people were this way, but the Chinese miners were always profitable. They had a system where they just got 25% more hash than everybody else, because you just put in a little, you just put
your algorithm.
You just put a little tweak, and it's public on the little forums, on the Reddit forums.
That's awesome, yeah.
And I was reading about that. I was like, that's crazy. And something else I want to talk about in terms of profitability of these equipment. A lot of the times they'll say like you get your money back in 6 to 9 months, and and this is something that gets funny with miners, is you get your money back in 6 to 9 months if the currency is flat.
Right.
But if the currency like doubles in value in 9 months or whatever, then maybe you get your money back in 4 to 5 if the currency is rising. So basically, it's quite often when you look at mining, the profitability might not be that great, except for the currency is generally rising at the currency, let's assume, will rise. And therefore, the profitability of mining is always like more profitable than it seems like it should be.
Yeah, that's a great point, because the fact is that I think in general cryptocurrency is a great investment.
Right.
And so as you mine, you're passively investing as you get these coins.
Right.
And so like a lot of the YouTube videos and resources I watched on this were Ethereum videos, because it's kind of one of the more current things.
Yeah.
And they were in the last year.
And it pays great right now, but
yeah, because like there are people that basically are doing these $2,400, these $1,500 rigs.
Yes.
And basically they were saying they were getting 30 ETH a month.
Yes.
Less than a year ago. Like back in August of last year.
Yeah, because Ethereum's all set up, and that's again with the thing rising. It's always set up. Miners are always paid for in terms of Bitcoin or Ethereum, not in terms of US dollars.
Yeah.
So 30 ETH a month, which used to only be $1,000 a month, now is $20,000 a month, or whatever.
It would have been like 9,000 a month.
9,000 a month, yeah.
But yeah, if it was 300,
it's always set in ETH, not in US dollars.
Right, exactly, because that's what you're mining, the actual coins. So it's a great way to passively invest in cryptocurrency. I think it's a good way to earn it. It's kind of cool too, because I guess I'm a bit of a techie and nerd, and I like doing this kind of prototypes and hardware stuff. So
you want to do any sign us off for this mining video?
No, I'm good on that. I was just gonna we're good.
Cool.
It's interesting to me how just the whole term miner is. I think there are a lot of analogies really with like it's kind of like, okay, if you were a gold miner, what you would be reaping is gold,
right?
And part of your result is dependent on how efficiently you operate, and all that good stuff, and how well you mine, but also the price of gold.
Exactly.
Because that's what you're, that's
what you're getting out of the ground.
So if you're getting out 10 units of gold a month, and consistently 10 units of gold, but the price of gold has doubled, well, you've got twice as much as much money to put beans on the table. Likewise, if the price of gold falls, you could be operating just as efficiently or whatever, but you've just taken a cut and pay. You know, I mean, it's
right. That's a great, because you're basically going after a commodity.
Yes. Yes.
So it's the value of the conversion of that commodity that you're tied to. So you have inherent risks to that for sure.
All right, I'm gonna stop it.
And
Midnight Discovery.